What's up everybody, Tom here with another video. In today's video, we'll be talking about everything to do with the stock markets and markets around the world right now, including the S&P 500, Nasdaq, Tesla, gold, silver, Bitcoin, and more. We've seen some weakness now in the markets for a couple of days, but is there more coming? Stay tuned, because we're going to have a look at that right now together. See you soon. Alright guys, well here begins our market recap for the markets closed 11th of November 2021. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty excited for what's ahead in the next coming months. I'm certainly excited for this market. I wanted to give a quick shout out first and foremost to everyone in the community. At this stage, we're about to approach 70,000 subscribers, and that's thanks to you guys liking the video, subscribing, and of course sharing the content. So keep it up. I really appreciate it, and I hope one day I can get to the dream of 100K, because that would be phenomenal. Let's talk about this heat map here on the S&P 500. Disney was down 7%. Why? Poor earnings. Of course, poor earnings and pretty lackluster technical analysis coming into the earnings didn't help it. And it's been downgraded now by a few, even bullish analysts are downgrading it slightly. Semiconductors was the standout based on this heat map, and the rest of the FANG and other stocks were basically sideways. Let's take a look at the indices. So we love IWM the most at the moment from a technical analysis standpoint. If you're looking at the bull side, it was the best index for the day, 0.8% up, actually started up and pretty much ended at the same point, which is important when you look at the rest of them. The rest of the indices all started higher, but actually ended lower. So this is interesting. I end lower on, of course, the bank holiday on slightly lower liquidity. And overall, the sentiment is not bullish in the market at the moment. It looks like Wall Street's really trying to dip this thing down, get it a little bit lower, and maybe pick it up for that back of November, possibly Christmas rally. Remember, we've talked about the 12th of November obviously being a seasonal event where the market has pulled back and often dipped into the 12th. And then we do know that Thanksgiving is notoriously a very bullish period. So we'll keep watching these on the charts and cover it together as a community. Semiconductors, the best sector. Materials also doing very well here. XLB 0.8%. Utilities, industrials, and healthcare leading the pack on the downside there. VIX, let's get into the technical analysis. What's going on here? So the volatility index did spike up to 20. Or just around 20. This is exactly where a TA analyst will probably try to dump their VIX position. We've talked about the 15 quite a few times and how this is a very, very, very strong level at the moment for VIX traders to try to look for that bounce. But we also know that 20 is the most important kind of resistance in the future anyway for the VIX. The VIX often doesn't spike above 20, but if it does close above it, it usually goes a bit ballistic for a day or so. That volatility comes into the market, and it's always short-lived with the VIX. Very rarely will you get VIX continuing to climb, usually just during an epic crash. So it's often big day up, then the next day it's all the way down. The price will be at the same point. You might say, well, how does that happen? Because initially the algorithm, so the algos spike the volatility in the options through fear, it bounces up, and then if it hovers around the same price and doesn't continue to go down, the VIX will not, or the fear index will not really go any higher. But let's talk about some TA on the really exciting side. And this is when we get into some of the predictions that we've made together as a community based on the technical analysis. And I'm pretty sure some of you guys will already guess this. Think about which commodity I'm going to talk about very, very soon. And also, we'll start off here with the DXY. So the US dollar broke through, closed above 94.50, got above 94.50 in general. We've been waiting for this one for some time. It's had another great follow-on from it. Congrats to people that are in the Forex pairs. Really strong trade here, very strong concept. And for anyone that doesn't know why it's so strong and hasn't been following the channel for a while, it's all about this really huge double bottom pattern. So this is a weekly, it's no slouch. We've gotten price above the 50 exponential moving average, the blue line, the 20 exponential moving average, the red line. We've seen that double bottom breakout. And while it's been a bit sluggish, remember, this is a weekly, you're playing to the idea that the dollar index should be able to get to a 97 reading in terms of TA, or possibly even a 98 reading. This is a big deal, this breakout. And if it holds through the Friday session, it's above the weekly 200 moving average as well, which we know it's respected a lot in the past. Look at the supports it's made. So we get above, what could happen? It could act as support. It's also a huge resistance and really big deal here for the DXY. If you guessed gold and silver correctly, then well done to you. You've clearly been following the channel. Yes, these are fantastic breakouts. We've seen 1832 get smashed on gold, and I'm sure a few of you are probably looking at this with your own systems and just going, this is amazing, it's so good. Another follow-through day has happened since the close that happened on the Wednesday session. And overall, this is very, very strong. 1830 breaks. What opens up? We get that 1910 breaking up. And we've talked about the seasonal here as well. November, December tends to be quite strong for gold. Here's the December move 2020. Here's the December move 2019. 2019. Then we get 2018. We get a move. And it continues. There's the December move 17. So some phenomenal stuff here that goes on in gold. And this is going to lead on to silver as well. Because while we have a 1910 potential first resistance on silver, let's talk about on gold. Let's talk about silver. Greater probably TA here. Got that strong inverse head and shoulders. Left shoulder, head, right shoulder. Here's the right shoulder. We get a nice bounce here. We've already initially proofed that this is a serious level, this 2480. We've got the bullish hammer, the follow through back above the moving averages. A lot of people would be getting into it at that stage. Little bit of a indecision style candle and a decision made on the closure here. The daily closing 25.23 or around that area at the time of this video recording. And this really puts in play the long head and shoulders. This is basically taking all of this distance, proofing it out, and that proves pretty close into this 28 flat. It actually is 28 flat. Let's just make sure that's correct. There we go. Get that back up here. There it is. 28 flat. So very huge calls here on silver coming into what is seasonally strong for gold and silver, this back of November, December period. And while there will be pullbacks throughout this is often what people call the participation zone. So huge closure. What do you guys think about this? What are your calls for silver into the back of the year? What do you think this is going to go to? Do you believe that it's going to go to something like a 28 based on the technicals or something else? The weekly story here is also very solid. Bullish hammer on the previous week and a closure should the Friday get above this. So significant. You can see it. Look, the TA looks really, really solid here, guys. I hope it continues. Let's move over to the US 10-year. So a lot of people concerned about inflation. Big bounce last two sessions on US inflation. 1.6% now for the 10-year yield. This usually will push around the Nasdaq, but as we know, the Nasdaq's been kind of not really susceptible to the 10-year recently. We thought when it got above 1.7 that it would possibly keep going. That 1.75 was the best we thought there. Find some resistance around this area, pull back, and then the idea is, of course, for it to eventually get to the 1.95. I find it hard to believe. I've talked to a lot of analysts and a lot of people in the industry. A lot of people think 2% is going to happen, or 1.95 to 2. Does it bounce back above 1.6? This is a fairly large deal for the 10-year, and it could be another bear case scenario type of investigation that people are doing. No one seems concerned about inflation. All the storylines are inflation, 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 but you'll notice the stock market isn't moving because of it. So the stock market must know something better than everybody else, I guess. But yeah, this is still a very important level. 1.6 plus close would be interesting for the weekly, and we'll check that out. Let's move on to the stocks now. We'll start off with Tesla. So Elon's finished selling a portion of the stock. We came down to the 1,000. We really detailed how we believed that the 1,000 wasn't going to go underneath based on put walls. So this is what we usually do here on the channel. We use a bit of options, find large strikes, and then of course take advantage of realizing that it's very unlikely the price will dump underneath those points. That put wall has actually disappeared now. The biggest strike that was at 1,000, someone's cleaned it up and closed it early. So what we've got now is really a mixture of between this 20 moving average here at 1,100 on the 4 hour and the 50 moving average. Will we get squeezed in price? I think one thing that's kind of inevitable here in Tesla, and it may force us actually to take it off the charts for a little while, is that we've had that rally we wanted. We know we've had the rally we wanted. This was what we were talking about for months and months and months over here in August, over here in September, and we got really, really bullish on this pair. But the problem that is that when it goes on these big epic runs, like over here it goes on an epic run, over here it goes on an epic run, and it has these blow-off style events, this one caused by Elon, it does tend to sideways track for a little while. So while it's not like I'm bearish on the stock or anything, the price action's still excellent. I could see it sidewaysing for a while. So maybe it's going to be more of a day trade scalp pair and pick up at certain zones. Will it come back down to 900? I'm not sure. Will it come back to the trend line? We don't know. But at this stage, look, the big move seems to be over. There's a little bit too much sentiment to the downside, and we'll watch it on that 4 hour to see how it trades between this 20 and the 50. The longer it stays in this zone, then when it breaks out past this, getting squeezed by the MAs, if that does happen, then we can get some nice technical trades in. So that would be pretty sweet in terms of setups. Let's check out Apple. Apple 147.87. A few of you might say, Tom, it's under 150. You said 150. Yes, I know, guys. The problem was 150 happened. We got a div straight after it. Earnings was over. Apple is one of those buy the rumor, sell the facts generally into earnings. We know that it has strong ramps into the earnings period, and it does traditionally tend to have that. I still think that if the Nasdaq comes down, which we'll talk about soon, we can move back down very easily to the 145, 146 area for Apple. And while I'm still pretty optimistic and bullish on it, I was just thinking about this today. Did you know that if you purchased Apple at the wrong price in September 2020, you might have had Apple at $137? It's not looking too good between then and now, is it? This is why it's so important to get good prices as an investor or a trader. 144 in January 21. Very bad. So it just shows you finding the right price and recognizing the right price action can be very beneficial. But we'll continue to cover Apple and we'll come back to it when we can. Let's move over to the S&P 500. It's weakened. It's weakened off the exact zone that we thought it would. Our community trend line that you guys have created together. This has been fantastic. Or Wall Street's created with us. We've all been having fun with the community trend line. Now that it's found this weakness, where's the next logical conclusion? Well, 4,600 seems like it's very likely based on technicals. We've got a 4,600, we've got a 20 moving average, psychological, all these types of things. But will we get any lower than that? Could we hit that 50 moving average? We'll have to watch how it plays around with the 46, but the 50 would actually make the most sense because it would come back to the previous resistance, be a little bit deeper pullback, which is probably due because it went so bullish here for so long. And at this point, you're also hitting this blue line here, which is one of the central pivots. So you're coming back to the central pivot for the monthly. Then you're effectively getting to that resistance level over here, which becomes support, and the 50 moving average would hit with it. So the 20 and the 50 are very open. And the reason I say the 50 could be open as well is we look back over to the left-hand side. The 50 seems to be notoriously strong here for the S&P 500. So it makes sense that while it might try for the 20, like here, it often comes back and has a go at the 50 just after that. And it's done it quite a few times. So we're looking at previous history to try to get a bit of an idea of prediction into the future. What do you guys think? You reckon that's happening? SPY is very similar. We've got the 20 here. Seems like a very logical conclusion for it now that it's started to move down. And if you go to any real time frame, you go to things like a 2 hour or 1 hour, you can see the change of trend here. The peak, the trough, the lower peak, the change here when it gets underneath, and all of a sudden that rally, that movement comes underneath. If it gets under this zone here, 2 hour 50, what happens? 4,600 is the next stop. And of course on the SPY, the equivalent number. Nasdaq, very similar scenario. We've got that massive ascending. For anyone that's new to the channel, this is what we've been following now for quite some time. You can see it's been very strong. Great channel. Fantastic thing on the ascending. We do have the 20 moving average still not hit, so unlikely that we've seen the end of this drop at this stage. And if you were believing in the 50 on the S&P, then of course 15,500 could be open for the Nasdaq as well. So still further position drops are very possible. This is about 1%. This is about 3%, 3.7% down. So these are the two scenarios that we see at this stage. Move over to IWM, our favorite index at this stage. Great breakout. You guys can all see the huge channel that it was in. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what you're going to do with that. Usually you take the distance and then you work that distance out, and that brings you to around a 258, 260 level in terms of potential target on the technicals. And if you really think about it, what's the next logical step? Well, if we think the markets are going to pull back, the more likely scenario is that this pulls back as well. It hits that 20 moving average, and then hopefully bounces for a strength into a seasonal rotation into the smaller stocks. Remember, the Russell is smaller stocks. It's 2,000 smaller cap companies. If we move even further down to the 50 on the S&P, where do we go? The bottom of this box range, around this area here, 230, and then hopefully resume the trend up. So some strong stuff coming out here from the IWM at this stage. Still our favorite in terms of the real strength you're seeing in that market compared to the others. Let's move over to the crypto world, and we'll start off with Bitcoin here. So Bitcoin's weekly is starting to look a little bit shaky. We had a more than a technical feeling. We had a gut feeling that in the previous video, the market would actually drop. It certainly did. It found support exactly where you would expect it, which was previous resistance here, right around that level. Dropped straight into it, instantly was purchased up here by buyers into the Bitcoin. Probably a whale move more than anything else. And look, there's nothing weak about this chart right now, but it isn't clearly the strongest. Ethereum is stronger. Ethereum's been holding up a lot better and just looks a lot better on the charts at this stage. And if you go down to some of the time frames, it just looks a little bit better across the board. Maybe a bit more trend line action going on through it as well. So that's been something that's been picked up now for a little while, this Ethereum trend line. If that breaks underneath, well, we've got something to worry about in the crypto market. Probably see that flash crash that's very apparent in these markets. And that's something that I'm following here. This trend line up for Ethereum, and even on the top end side, is something that I'm going to continue to look at throughout the weekend, throughout the next couple of days in crypto, because we bust underneath this zone here. What happens? We could create a bit of a flash crash. And while I'm very bullish into the end of the year from a seasonal, from what we're seeing in the markets, what we're seeing in the uptake, everything like that, we always need to know that the next potential pullback in the crypto market is always between that 20 and 30% bracket. And that's what happens. If you're new to the crypto market, sorry to tell you, when crypto crashes, it gets you a good 20 to 30% like this. It's so fast you can barely see it. That's what tends to happen. So we'll continue to watch this market and check it out. ADA hits that 230, unable to breach, and then it comes straight back down to the 190. So this is the type of thing that's going on in the markets right now. Just strong technical holds, chain link similar. You can't get through the resistance. Dots back to support. You know, a lot of these big coins are all showing that they're just consolidating, waiting for that next decision, that next move. Hopefully you enjoyed the video today, guys. If you did, please smash that like button. Also subscribe. Get us to 70K. You can do it. We're right there. We're only about 20, 30 people away. So I do appreciate each and every one of you. We'll see you in the weekend video. And thanks so much for supporting the channel. Bye for now, and have a great Friday and a great weekend. Catch up.